Life is hard, not sometimes, not occasionally, but deeply, undeniably hard. It aches in ways we can't always explain. It weighs heavy on the chest, even when everything looks fine on the outside. But maybe that weight isn't a flaw in life. Maybe it's a signal, an invitation to look deeper. What if the struggle we feel is the same struggle the greatest minds wrestled with? Camus, Nietzsche, Buddha, Frankl? What if their pain, their wisdom, their words hold a map? In this video, I won't promise you answers, but I will walk with you through the thoughts of those who stared into the dark and still chose to speak. Through Elias's eyes, and maybe through your own, we'll explore one question: is life still worth living, even when it hurts? Once upon a time, in a quiet town shaded by hills and memory, there lived a young man named Elias. He had what most would call a good life: a steady job, a roof over his head, a family that loved him. No tragedy, no scandal, just life. But every morning as sunlight crept through his bedroom window, a heaviness returned to his chest. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet ache that never quite left. Elias sits on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor. The world outside moves on. He couldn't explain it. Nothing was exactly wrong, and yet everything felt off. One evening, he sat with a friend, the sky bleeding orange behind them, and he asked, "Why do I wake up every day just to work, eat, sleep, and do it again?" His friend laughs, brushing it off, and replies, "Because that's life." But that didn't sit right, not with Elias. So he turned to philosophy, not for quotes, not for cleverness, but for help. The first name he found was Albert Camus, the French-Algerian thinker with tired eyes and a cigarette always nearby. Camus once wrote, "There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide." Elias blinked. Was life really so hard that people asked whether it was worth continuing? But Camus wasn't encouraging despair. In fact, he was doing the opposite. He called life absurd, a constant search for meaning in a universe that offers none. But he said that absurdity isn't a death sentence. It's a kind of freedom. Because if life has no set meaning, we get to create it. So Elias walked, past the fields, past the noise, past the town, into the night, thinking, feeling, not searching for answers anymore, but for something else: understanding. The next voice Elias discovered was Friedrich Nietzsche, sharp, burning, unapologetic. A man who believed in the necessity of pain. Nietzsche wrote, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." And in that line, Elias found a mirror. One myth kept surfacing again and again: Sisyphus, the man cursed by the gods to roll a boulder up a hill forever, only to watch it tumble back down again and again and again. Pointless, cruel. But then Camus reappeared, whispering from the page, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy." Happy? In endless labor? And yet, what if the power wasn't in escaping the burden, but in choosing to push the stone anyway? Elias looked at his own boulders. His job, his obligations, his restlessness, they weren't going anywhere. But maybe he didn't have to fear them. Maybe he could push with purpose. Tired of the West's storm of ideas, Elias turned east and found Buddha, the serene one, beneath the Bodhi tree. 4 truths greeted him like old friends. Life is suffering. Suffering is caused by desire. There is a way out. That way is through awareness. Elias frowned at first. Is the answer to life's pain just wanting less? He didn't understand, but he sat anyway and listened. And for the first time, he saw it. Most of his pain didn't come from life itself, but from how tightly he clung to how life should be. He realized pain is inevitable, but suffering is pain plus resistance. So he breathed. He watched his thoughts like clouds passing, and little by little, the storm calmed. Not because the world changed, but because he stopped fighting it. One rainy afternoon, Elias found the Stoics, men of action, men of loss, men of discipline. Epictetus, a slave-turned-philosopher, once said, "We cannot control what happens to us, we can only control how we respond." And Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor surrounded by war and betrayal, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These weren't philosophers in towers. They were survivors, workers, soldiers, people with scars. And still, they believed in peace. Not the kind you stumble into, but the kind you forge within. Elias began to write every morning, like Marcus. "I will meet frustration today. I will meet difficulty, but I will not be shaken." He still faltered, still got tired, still felt anger rise. But now those moments weren't failures. They were practice. Practice in becoming what the Stoics called a flame that turns everything it touches into light. Elias then met Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist, a Holocaust survivor. Frankl lost his family, his freedom, nearly his mind, but he never lost this truth. Those who have a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Reading Frankl, Elias cried, not out of guilt, but gratitude. Because Frankl wasn't minimizing pain, he was elevating it. He showed Elias that meaning wasn't some grand destiny. It could be small, quiet. Maybe Elias's why wasn't applause, wasn't money, but simply kindness, presence, leaving something behind that made the world less cruel. That was enough. Years passed, Elias changed, but not because life became easier, it didn't. He still lost people, still failed, still hurt, but now he understood the pain. He saw how every hardship, the late nights, the heartbreaks, the long stretches of loneliness had shaped him, carved out space inside him, for depth, for resilience, for grace. Hannah Arendt, another philosopher of darkness, once said, "The darkness may never end, but in it, we learn to think." Elias didn't chase struggle, but he didn't run from it anymore either, because he saw it now. The hard path isn't beside the way, it is the way. Now, Elias is older, his hands rougher, his voice slower, but his gaze, sharp, steady. He teaches now, and sometimes his students ask, "Why is life so hard?" He smiles, not because it's an easy question, but because he's lived it, and he says, "Because it's supposed to be. That's how you know you're alive." Then he quotes Kierkegaard, the melancholic Dane, "Life can only be understood backward, but it must be lived forward." Life is hard, but that's not the end of the sentence. Life is hard, and we are strong. Life is hard, and we are thinking creatures with the power to choose our response. Life is hard, and still, it is beautiful.